Where do you want to start, kids?
Well, what's the point of it all?
This is interesting, right? Because it was, you were saying off air, you read the quotes, and also it's unusual. There are depths to Scottie Scheffler that maybe many of the other golfers do not possess.
Yeah, and this is a guy who was accused of not having depth at all, or not having an interesting character arc whatsoever. He's just extremely good at golf. People shrugged their shoulders to Scottie Scheffler, to the point where he was kind of becoming boring James Milner Twitter-style character. And then he does this bombshell. And I was saying off air was if you read the quotes and didn't hear what he said, you would think that this guy is done with the game. But then when you actually hear his 5-minute monologue, you think he's actually probably never been more motivated. Because he says, in spite of all this, he's admitted to everything, that the pointlessness of it all, essentially, the existential crisis that he faces. But at the same time, he basically has described what is an addiction to the game. And he loves it.
Nobody apart from that guy in Liv who's like won all the money has made more money from professional sport than Scottie Scheffler in the last kind of 18 months. He's at a level of success that is at kind of Tiger-esque proportions in terms of the rate at which he's winning. And so for him on the eve of the Open to be in such reflective mood, I think we have a clip of it here. Have a look at this.
It feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling. And I like to win the Byron Nelson Championship at home. I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf, to have an opportunity to win that tournament. And you win it, you celebrate, get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, now what are we gonna eat for dinner? Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish the things I have in the game of golf? Yeah, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about, because I've literally worked my entire life to become good at this sport, and to have that kind of sense of accomplishment, I think is a pretty cool feeling. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to number one in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. I'm kind of a sicko. I love putting in the work. I love being able to practice. I love getting out to live out my dreams. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just don't understand the point. I love the challenge. I love being able to play this game for a living. It's one of the greatest joys of my life. But does it fill the deepest, wants and desires of my heart? Absolutely not. I love being a father. I love being able to take care of my son. I love being able to provide for my family out here playing golf. And every day when I wake up early to go put in the work, my wife thanks me for going out and working so hard. And when I get home, I try and thank her every day for taking care of our son. It's just, that's why I talk about families being my priority, because it really is. I'm blessed to be able to come out here and play golf, but if my golf ever started affecting my home life, or it ever affected the relationship I have with my wife or with my son, that's going to be the last day that I play out here for a living. I would much rather be a great father than I would be a great golfer. That at the end of the day, that's what's more important to me.
Yeah, there you go. Is that ringing any bells for you, Colm?
Yeah, it's a perspective changer for sure. But it carries weight with the guy who's that successful to say it. Do you remember Boo Weekley? He was part of the 2008 Ryder Cup winning side for the US, and he caught the world by storm that week. He was amazing. This cavalier attitude, a lover of life who happened to be good at golf. And he basically said the same thing around that time of his popularity. Obviously, he wasn't near to winning a major, but he said, I love the game, I hate the grind. Go away.
He's saying, I love the grind.
That was one version of it.
Yeah.
And then Scottie loves the detail of it. There's another part of the press conference yesterday he talks about the books that he reads, and he said, outside the Bible, it's how a course is structured, and he skims through it. So he does love the detail. The difference in the Boo Weekley and Scottie Scheffler was Boo Weekley wasn't winning tournaments, but he had to go through the grind of playing the tournament. Scottie Scheffler wins the tournaments, and for him it's the same feeling of going through the grind as, I've just won this, and now what? So he gets that half an hour or whatever it is of joy, and then he goes back to square one. But I think that it does show that there's an unrelatability to multimillionaire golfers that people won't have. A lot of people won't have sympathy for that take that Scottie Scheffler has. But I imagine if you live that life and that is the standard of your living, that it does, after a while, make you question why you're doing the whole thing. So I do find it. I find it incredible that he said it on the eve of the tournament too.
For me, I remember Conor Deegan sitting in this studio or one of our other studios talking about looking up at the scoreboard at the end of winning on All Ireland and going, that it? Is that all this is? I think Brawley has expressed something similar, and that for me is what this is unconnected to the hard work and stuff. Like he loves that, he says, but it's the bit where you achieve the thing that you've been chasing. You reach the pinnacle of Mount Everest, and you're like, oh, which is I actually think it's about loving the journey as opposed to the arrival, and I think it means that he's going to continue to do this again and again and again and again. There's kind of a, for him, I think there's a cold-eyed assassin quality to this, because when you read it first, you're like, oh, Scheffler is on the verge of quitting because it might affect his home life. You're like, that's not what's happening here at all. It's the opposite.
That's what I thought. Watched it, and I think that's terrifying for the rest of the field, because he's put it all out there now. There's nothing more he can really say if he's ever doubting himself or his profession or what he wants to do. There's nothing else to say now. He's put it all out there, and he's in the peak of his career. And he said he's never been more motivated. Yet he questions the whole point of it all. And also in the part that wasn't, there's an extended version of that, which he said, I'm not here to inspire the next generation as well. He's not inspiring people to get into golf. He kind of sees this as his job, but also his passion.
Why do we think he didn't join Live as a matter of interest? Like, if, what's the difference? Why wouldn't you? Especially now.
Maybe they didn't make an offer consummate with his worth.
Like,
commensurate with his worth.
Like, it wouldn't need to have been a billion, really, because he's the best.
He's kind of he's the man, I don't know. There's probably watching it, you kind of, you have that sort of self-realisation that there's certainly a prejudice on my own behalf when American athletes, particularly, athletes like him, when they talk about their faith and stuff so often, that you prescribe, there's a sort of shallowness that I prescribe to that it seems like the path of such least resistance. It's like, that's a handy way of, and it's not to say that it's disingenuous, but it's a handy way of kind of streamlining all your thoughts. That it's like, if you narrow everything down to that, and it's like, it's very easy then to kind of frame everything around it. It's like, if you're so one-eyed with that, and everything is fair, and you see it a lot. You see it a lot even with boxers particularly, and it kind of makes a degree of sense. And it's kind of a bit of an eye opener. Then you're like, oh no, wait, like that's quite unfair. And it's like people like him are thinking incredibly deeply about everything, and it's not kind of a diversion tactic or whatever else. Like, he's having to battle all these types of things and all these, and it's not enough to just put something in the way and go like, well, if God or whatever else is my focus, I don't have to worry about anything else in the thing and everything else. So I focus on that, focus, practice everything else. It'll help me in the long run. So I found it very eye-opening. I found it fascinating. But it's I certainly get the impression that it was like, oh, this guy's a cold-eyed killer. It's like, he might only be getting started.
Yeah.
If he's kind of, it was a funny thing comparatively how open Rory can be. When it was like, there's openness with sort of vulnerability, and then there's openness with, he did not strike me as vulnerable here at all.
He's 29, just turned 29. So he has 10 years more, 40 more majors, where his ability to, like, I don't know.
I think he's describing what it is to be a great of any sport, in that none of the greats reflect on winning that long. None of them, because they wouldn't be great if they did.
Yeah, it's like, you don't celebrate the Carling Cup.
And I'm guessing what Scottie Scheffler is saying there is something that Rory McIlroy would listen to and think, God almighty, like, if I just cherish the Masters a bit more. Because I don't think he can now. I think that's done. Winning the Masters, I don't think he can celebrate it now. Say if he had like a good Open here and placed 5th or 6th or something like that, and was in contention on Sunday and was going to take a break for a while until, say, the Ryder Cup, I don't think he's going to party with the Ryder or with the Masters now. That would have been immediately afterwards, or whenever he retires, which is going to be a long time away. But he probably missed his window to really appreciate what he did.
Nathan Murphy is live on the course. Good morning to you, Nathan.
How are you, Ger? How's it going?
We're just talking about...
Doesn't really look like the course, but yeah.
Yeah, Scottie Scheffler and his press conference yesterday. I'd say, I think we all agreed in different ways that it's not good for the field that Scottie Scheffler is so unfulfilled by victory, apart from that little fleeting moment.
Yeah, funny. I was talking to someone last night who felt the complete opposite, that they came out of it thinking this guy's never going to win again. That actually he has achieved so much so quickly and isn't getting the requisite buzz out of it, that maybe he doesn't have that inner Tiger Woods-like drive to go and win 10, 12 majors. Maybe he doesn't have that inner drive that Rory McIlroy had over the last decade, that I have to stick with this to go and win that Masters at a time when all of McIlroy's contemporaries just fell away because they had all of the wealth and all of the fame and they were sick of all of the travel and they just didn't put in the effort they did when they were kids. But I'd be more with you that like everything about Scheffler's mindset and the calmness with which he approaches everything and the way he can take the emotion out of everything, that he's not there playing for the gratification because he knows it's never going to be enough. So he just goes out and he works bloody hard. He works harder than anybody else. And actually he can get enough satisfaction from that, that even whether he wins or not, he can go home with a smile on his face. Yeah, it was a remarkable answer at the end of what was a sort of fairly straightforward conference. There was nothing that really stood out. And then he has this sort of mad moment of introspection that leads to everybody else in the room having this moment of introspection as well. If you're not happy at the end of the day, how the hell is anybody else happy at the end of the day?
Has a personality star been born here, Nathan? Because the running commentary about Scottie Scheffler is like, well, there's not much to talk about there. He's just excellent at golf.
Yeah, but he's always been very, very thoughtful, and he's always happy to give long, eloquent answers. Like, there's still nothing massively to buy into, I guess. Like, it's hard not to, when you listen to Scheffler, to almost compare it all to McIlroy and the emotion that seems to go with everything that Rory does and the investment that people have in him. Whereas Scottie just goes along, does his thing, is the best golfer in the world, wins all of the tournaments. He's got more outspoken over the last year or so. He's had more opinions on different things, but certainly not to the level that Rory would have, where, you know, he seems to have a very strong opinion and thought process on everything. But yeah, I think it was one of those moments where you think, I'm going to be asking sports people about this comment for a long time to come, because I heard Ger mention it there. Like, it's the number one line. And, you know, next Monday when you're talking to, you know, maybe Cork players or Tipperary players, and like relief will be the word they bring up more often than not. And in a way, how can it be anything but? And what's the alternative? Like, the alternative for Scottie Scheffler, I guess, is ego. That if you don't stop celebrating after 24 or 48 hours, or don't go back to normal life, you're obviously changing yourself because of this victory. You're allowing the ego to creep in, and then you're not going to be the player that you once were. And he seems to have this grounding.
There are loads of those, though. There are loads of those people. Yeah.
Absolutely. People who completely lose.
Every small town in Ireland who has won their first senior championship knows 40% of the squad wearing the jersey for 6 months afterwards.
Yeah, the way of celebrating is you force the celebration to continue. As you say, it happens. You go, we're partying on Sunday night, we're partying on Monday night, and actually next Friday I'm not going to play. And some players have done that. You think of Bob McIntyre last year when he won in Canada, and there was a elevated event the week after. He said, no, I'm going home. I'm going back to Scotland because I've worked my entire life and now I want to enjoy this moment. Now, Bob, a month later, goes and wins the Scottish Open. So actually, that was clearly the best way for him to go about it, that this was the better thing for him to do. So that's not...
Oh, you've gone mute there, Nathan. A
reminder.
reminder.
And he's always leaned very heavily on his faith. But it's interesting, the timing of this. It sort of started with a question about winning the Byron Nelson Classic, which, again, for somebody who's won 2 Masters in a PGA, you sort of think it isn't relevant. But the starting point was, well, actually, this was the thing I worked my entire life for. This was the bit that he went to this tournament every summer. He watched the players playing. He thought, I want to play in this. I want to win this. And that was what got him up in the morning to work really, really hard. And then to have won it, I wonder, actually, was that the moment where he thought, all right, now I've done that thing again, to go back to the constant McIlroy comparisons. He scaled his own sort of personal Everest. And, all right, life just hasn't really changed. Again, easy to say all this when you've banked 100 million quid this year. You know, the line of, oh, if this starts interfering with my home life, I won't be a professional golfer anymore. Look at you, eh?
I mean, like, it clearly isn't, you know.
Well, that's why, like, I think that's why he said those words with such comfort and knowing what he already has and what he's achieved. Like, I was thinking back to last summer when he won gold at the Olympics and the camera's on him and he's in the range practicing away just in case it goes to playoff, and he's told about it and he just shrugs his shoulders. Oh, cool. And look, maybe this is just Scottie Scheffler's way. But I wonder when you're in the room and you hear that level of honesty from someone, like, does that mean they're in a really good place or a really bad place? Because they're just so honest about the pointlessness of it all. I mean, the scam about being a great is that you'll never get to enjoy it.
Yeah. Funny, the question I wanted to ask him yesterday was that he is at a massive disadvantage coming into this tournament. He never played links golf as a kid. One of his first times was when he played his first Open Championship. So he's played 4 Open Championships before this. He came over last week and he played in Scotland. Scotland's sort of a false links. It's not a proper links experience. And if this is, all he's playing for is these 4 tournaments every year, would you not come over a week earlier and get yourself fully ingrained in that links experience? But I think within that answer he gave it again, which is, no, I wouldn't, because I've made a decision that actually I just live my life this way. I'm not willing to make that extra commitment. And if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. And that does feel in contrast to an awful lot of other top, certainly former golfers. I can't imagine Tiger Woods ever thinking like that. And maybe that does mean that he ends his career with 5 majors rather than 10 majors. But he seems okay with that.
He does get narky on the course, though. He has had a temper over the years, right?
Yeah, he does, but he doesn't have much need to get too narky too often because generally he's just been so relentlessly brilliant. Now, he's no John Ram. Like, it's not a constant conversation with himself in any way. So, yeah, no, I think he gets after himself. He spoke about that a little bit yesterday as well. That, he feels he's actually quite an angry person. And that he's just got better and better at holding it in. Bob McIntyre spoke about giving himself an hour after a tournament, if it doesn't go well, to basically do whatever he wants and smash up the room, and then it's done. I don't think, again, Scottie's quite at that level of anger and frustration.
It'll be tough to top the emotion of that Sunday night / Monday morning from the Masters for Rory McIlroy, for all of us, for everyone else watching. But one of the great regrets almost I have on his behalf is that he didn't seem to enjoy it that much afterwards, and he'll never get that time back. And interesting comments from himself this week, talking about the Masters, saying, I've done something I've told everyone I wanted to do, but then I still feel like I have a lot more to give. And to paraphrase the rest of it, didn't give enough time for myself to enjoy it. The tour are great at keeping you on the hamster wheel. And it feels like now he's coming out the other side and realising what he achieved, but it was a really strange couple of months immediately afterwards.
Yeah, it's been really peculiar. Again, linking back to the Scheffler comments on the opposite side, that we all expected the wild ride of celebration to continue for weeks and weeks and weeks. And even, like, I know you said the tour on the hamster wheel, his first tournament back was that team event with Shane Lowry, which they didn't have to play. They felt they wanted to play because they were the defending champions. And, I think Shane sort of assumed that maybe Rory might skip it. But we all sort of worked off the assumption, like, that was a couple of weeks later. He's going back with Shane. Like, that's the best event because you get everyone patting you on the back saying, well done, Rory. Delighted for you. And he has spoken at other times that he does feel he has celebrated it, that he went and he had a really good couple of weeks, and he's done a few cool things, and he came back to his parents here in Northern Ireland for a day or two. But you just do wonder with McIlroy, had he built this up so much in his head that he was expecting something different, that his own feelings would be dramatically changed once he finally got that green jacket on. And here's one for you. I was leaving the course last night at about 8 o'clock. There was a little bit of a commotion just in front of me. And out of the commotion, walking towards the clubhouse, emerges a man in a green jacket. Rory McIlroy walking into the clubhouse in his green jacket. I thought, yes, Yes.
Oh.
That's because he had mentioned that he had the green jacket with him, and he obviously wear it around Augusta. But actually, hey, like that's enjoying it. I've wanted to do this. The people here have wanted me to do this, and now he was going into some function last night, and I'm going to wear my green jacket.
I thought you were only allowed to wear it around Augusta, but actually you can wear it. For the first year you're allowed to wear it anywhere? Is that it? And then afterwards it's like keep in your locker. Am I wrong with that?
How do they
I
force it to
think
do that?
I think you can wear your. I suppose after the first year, maybe it just becomes a bit uncomfortable if you're wearing your green jacket. Like Phil used to go to In-N-Out Burger after he would win in his green jacket.
Fair enough.
Oh, think of the sauce danger there. Jesus.
Yeah. Look, Rory definitely seems a little bit more chilled this week than he was over the last few weeks, and he's very calm and composed. And at the press conference, there was no real sniping with any of the journalists or the American journalists who he seemed to particularly have a problem with after the PGA, and he's in a good place. And listen, after what happened in 2019 and the absolute disaster of the first hole in 2019 when the entire tournament blew up, like this you have to feel is that next Everest from. Now, the problem with that is that what happens if you don't win? Like, are you down? Are you thinking, oh, this year's not what I want it to be? I missed out in Portrush. So there's a little bit of added pressure that comes with that. He's not out until late tomorrow on his first round, where he's been playing his practice rounds incredibly early. He was here 7 o'clock Monday morning, 4 hours sleep, flew straight in from Scotland. But you hope whatever he was looking for that he finds it, because what he gave us that Sunday night at Augusta was the best sporting moment of the year, of many years, by far. Yeah. It was insane. It was everything you would want him to have achieved, and how he won it, and the drama with how he won it. You'd love to see him somewhere in the mix this week, because the Open is on a different level to an Irish Open, where you always say you need the Irish guys in the mix, and he was in the mix last year at Royal County Down. I think the atmosphere around here with the crowds that have been coming in already, it'd be pretty spectacular if Rory's thereabouts.
I do wonder what he senses would be an achievement in a week's time from his display at the Open this time around, because he said in 2019 he chose isolation over adulation, that he was getting a helicopter in and out, and was basically freaked out by the love he received in the first tee on that Thursday 6 years ago, that he didn't expect it. He said, God almighty, people really want me to win this thing. And then when he shoots a 79, and he ends up only missing the cut by a shot on the Friday, and he's in tears. And I guess you're thinking, well, it's definitely a matured Rory McIlroy since then. He's completed the ultimate, and he seems to be in a very good place. So if he just has a decent tournament and enjoys the atmosphere a lot more, do you predict that we'll see a content Rory McIlroy in a week's time?
There's ways of winning and ways of losing, isn't there? Like a Rory who never really features but has a good time and everyone pats him on the back. I don't know if he's leaving here on Monday particularly satisfied with that. Likewise, if you're thereabouts and somebody comes and shoots 63 to beat you, maybe you can take that. Or if you have a heartbreaking defeat again. So, no, I still think there's the competitor in there. And while he might look around and might expect the goodwill and be prepared for it a little bit better, I still think nothing short of victory is enough from on a week like this. But that first tee, it's not just McIlroy that's spoken about that. Shane Lowry spoke about it as well, that he was sort of, whoa. And this wasn't the Saturday, Sunday. This was on the Thursday. And likewise, Darren Clarke, who hit the first tee shot on the Thursday, what Harrington's going to do tomorrow, he was absolutely blown away. Because, again, most of these guys are spending their time in America, where they don't necessarily have their favourite golfer. There's not 20,000 people, 30,000 people around the first tee just cheering for you and desperate. They've sort of built their weekend around you playing well and giving something to get behind. So, it's quite an unusual situation for them. And that first tee shot is maybe the toughest opening tee shot in major championship golf. As we saw from McIlroy last year, there's out of bounds just off the fairway on the left. There's out of bounds just off the fairway on the right. It's not a particularly long hole as it sort of meanders up the hill, but it can be an absolute killer right at the start of the tournament. So throw all that into the mix, and it's a lot on your shoulders as you step up. It's probably the equivalent of stepping up in the first tee at the Ryder Cup.
Do you have to hit driver? Is there an iron?
You can hit iron because it's not that long, but almost everyone does hit driver because, again, they're probably looking at it as a whole where you can get off to a quick start. They trust their driver. Like Rory. The thing with Rory is he's one of the best drivers in the game. His driver hasn't been perfect this year, but I think he would always trust himself off that first tee on any hole, unless, of course, the memories of 2019 are still there and he goes, you know what, I'm just going to hit
Today only, yeah. Like,
and the other thing is he hits the ball so far with everything. Maybe I'm just going to hit a long iron down there, get it on the fairway, and we'll all move on with our lives, and nobody will ever speak of 2019 again.
what are the other contenders saying? I was reading John Rahm yesterday saying he loves Ireland. He's always loved Ireland. Comes here when there aren't even tournaments on with the family. I was like, I didn't realise that. Obviously, he always wins when he plays here.
Yeah. His record is sensational. He won at Portrush, 5 miles down the road. He won at Lahinch. He seems to have more of a smile on his face than he generally does when he comes to Ireland. It'll be interesting in terms of the prep between the two different tournaments because Liv played at Valderrama last week, and you would sort of assume again that Scotland, the players that were there, have a massive advantage because they were playing this type of golf. But actually, Valderrama is one of the toughest golf courses in the world. It was very windy, so they're playing really difficult shots over the 3 rounds of Liv. And does that sort of zone them in a little bit better than the guys that were in Scotland? All of this will be, figured out in hindsight. And they don't play a links event over on Liv. The overwhelming sense I had listening to John Rahm yesterday was just one of sadness that he has left us for Liv, because he's just so thoughtful, and he speaks a lot about his understanding of the history of the game, and he's so well versed on the history of Spanish players at this tournament, and that he jumped ship in that way. You would have almost had him above all of those top golfers as somebody who would definitely stick around on the PGA Tour. So I think Rahm will be probably the most tipped player this week, just because, again, Scheffler's lack of links experience, maybe the pressure that's on Rory's shoulders, and that feeling that Rahm has an Open Championship or many in him. In fact, I think if he's won 2 majors already, you would have thought the Open would probably be the first one that he wins. So he could certainly find himself 3/4 of a way to a Grand Slam. Bryson DeChambeau was in yesterday. A little bit of madness, a little bit of quirkiness. A real maturity to Bryson over the last year. Like, admitted last year at Troon, he literally got blown away by the wind and couldn't deal with it. But I think we've seen at the Masters over the last few years that, like, the sort of brash Bryson, if I can overpower any course, while he can still do that, I think that mentality has gone from him to all right, I need to figure this out. He has the work ethic to figure it out. Whether he has the shots, I think we're going to have to wait and see. Xander Schauffele, the defending champion, looked so comfortable at links and is probably coming into form. He would feel at just the wrong time because of this massively condensed major calendar where they're all over in a flash. He had some injuries at the start of the year. It took him a little bit of time to get back from that. So you think Schauffele might be in the mix. Went and followed Jordan Spieth for 6 or 7 holes yesterday. It was a fairly wild ride, but Jordan's actually playing sneaky okay this year, and he just had a kid last week, which is always...
Does he not have a restraining order against you, Nathan?
Quite possibly. So the Americans have such a good record at this tournament, and a Brian Harman is not somebody anyone would expect to win an Open Championship. If the conditions are decent and it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything too extreme, like there was a good bit of rain yesterday, it's blustery enough, but I don't think anything like we had on Saturday in Troon. I think a lot of those good Americans will feel that they can compete once again. But you'd have to think Rory, Shane, with the way he's played consistently this year, really should have a win. Much better golfer, much better form than he was in back in 2019. Obviously, there's a lot on this week, as even though he says himself, I'm not the defending champion. That sense of you're back. So yeah, Shane, if he can get in the mix as he did last year. Remember, he led at the halfway stage last year. True, we sort of all thought nobody can get near him once the weather gets bad. Turns out maybe Shane's not as big a fan of the bad weather as we all like to think he is.
He wasn't too enamoured with the questions about his lifestyle and his enjoyment of a party beforehand, but his preparation looks like it's been fairly thorough. He's been in Ireland, he's played in Adair Manor and Portmarnock and the likes. Is this his first time back in Portrush?
No, I think he said he had been. I think he had been up at different stages.
Right.
He was up last week as well, but I think he had been up at some stage over the last few years. The start of the press conference was interesting because I think the first 4 questions were drinking Rory, drinking Rory. And you're like, uh-oh. But it was Dan Rappaport, the golf writer, who asked him the sort of follow-up question. The first question was about the celebrations and tell us about that. He's like, I've been telling you about this for 6 years and all the videos are there. You can see what happened. And Dan Rappaport actually spent quite a bit of time playing in some of those courses with Shane last week, gave the follow-up question of, the sort of constant talk about drink, does it get at you? And that's a question I'd want to ask Shane for a while, because that line he gave to the first answer, he's brought up a few times of sort of, people think I'm this big drinker. And like people do. I think people look at the celebrations from afar and it sort of feeds into this, I don't want to say misconception because I don't know Shane well enough, but certainly this underestimation of Shane as a golfer of, sure, Jesus, he's just out there having a good time and he can't believe his luck. And he'll have a few drinks at the end of the day and all the rest of the lads are in the gym, but Shane's out partying. And like, that's, he knows how to celebrate. He is one of those who can bring that celebration and make the absolute most of it, and I'm sure he'll be asked about it, might feel completely different to Scottie Scheffler of, do you know what? It was worth everything because of what I got to enjoy for those days and weeks after Portrush in 2019. And, maybe again, his socializing is slightly different, but you look at Shane at the moment, he's in good shape. His trainer, Robbie Cannon, is up here with him. He's putting in the hard yards. But it's probably been hard for him in a way to escape that when he's celebrating, there's a lot of drink involved. And I get the sense it probably does piss him off a little bit that it takes away from maybe some of the respect that he deserves.
Tom McKibben finished 4th at Valderrama last week, has been a massive success. The team that he plays for, he's on that John Ram team in Live. He's made an absolute fortune, way more than he would have done on any available tour. Unless he'd actually had a win. So there's somebody who's in good form, knows the course. Is there anything to be said about it?
Yeah, he's still very young, isn't he? He's still very, very young. What is he, 21? I'm sure he feels he's entirely justified in his move to Live. Has played a major already this season. Probably would have had a difficult year over on the PGA. First time having to go and live in America and try and scrap it out all there, and it's been difficult for a lot of the European players. Yeah, listen, the Irish obviously have an incredible run at this tournament in a way that none of the other countries around here do. Like, if you go back to Nick Faldo for the last time an English player has won, and we sort of assume that everyone in this part of the world is just so good at links golf. Like, most of these guys play a different style of golf all of the time, including the Irish players. And, I wonder, is it that straightforward for Tom McKibben to just come back and be... Again, Tom McKibben grew up in Hollywood, Parkland golf course. But, came through the system, has more experience than a Scottie Scheffler or the Americans. I still think it's probably a little bit too young for him. He's going out first thing tomorrow morning with Harrington, so there'll be a good gallery there, even at sort of 6:30 on a Thursday morning. And yeah, he's made himself a lot of money. Like, the rumours were somewhere between 5 and 8 million of a signing on fee for Liv. As you say, he got into what looks like the best team, getting to play alongside John Ram. Came 4th last week. I think it was 5th the week before. That's about $1.5 million in prize money.
It's insane. It is insane.
So he maybe does look at it and think, yeah, I made the right decision. But, golf is no closer to a merging of the tours again. So we don't know what long-term impact it's going to have on his major ambitions, but he's weighed it up and he seems quite comfortable with it.
The modern history of the tournament is interesting in terms of who wins it. You mentioned there the American success. 3 of the last 4 winners have been from the US, but the last betting favourite to win it was Jordan Spieth in 2017. And the last player to retain it, of course, himself, Padraig Harrington, 2008. He's out first, like you say, tomorrow morning. Is there any sneaking chance at all here, Nathan? He got the senior US Open again, that he could have a good week here.
I've always felt that Harrington could end up with his thing being, I'm the oldest ever major winner. And I also have in my head that it'll obviously be at the Open because he's always thereabouts. And then you look at his record since he won in 2008. and it's actually not great. So last year he gave himself he had a bit of a run at it, and he was thereabouts. And again, we had the little fairy tale conversation. It was really nice to see him sort of in the mix. And I think he finished tied for 22nd or 23rd. Like his best finish since 2008 is a tie for 20th. Whereas in my head, Harrington is just such a brilliant links player that he's always there or thereabouts, and it really hasn't been the case. So yeah, you would, Jesus, after Rory or Harrington would probably be the next most popular winner this week. And even if he was there on the Sunday, and he's obviously playing some decent golf, winning a second US Senior Open, he himself will be the first to admit it's a very, very different thing from competing with these guys. So it's good for him that he has that sort of honour of hitting the opening tee shot. I think he's still got another 6, maybe 7 Open Championships to come before he turns 60. And yeah, experienced players, about 10, 12 years ago, we had that sort of run of Ernie Els, Darren Clark, Phil Mickelson, experienced guys winning the tournament.
Tom Watson nearly, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Watson was 59.
Yeah.
And that's the one we always point to of maybe, just maybe, everything will fall into place. And yeah, the way Harrington's career has gone, the quirkiness of it, God, it'd be brilliant to see him there.
We got to go, but is there an outsider that people should be? Are you tipping anybody?
I like Russell Henley. So Russell Henley's won this year on the American Tour. I think he's around 50-1. He's going to be on the Ryder Cup team for America, and he played here as an amateur. I think he put so well. He has the game that he could be one of those Americans who sneaks in. And then, like, way outside, looking at it last night, Matteo Manasero's had a bit of a rejuvenation, maybe as a first-round leader or something like that. But yeah, I like Henley, and I think of the favourites, John Rahm is the one that you have to look towards.
All right. Good stuff, Nathan. Enjoy. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
See you.
7 minutes past 8. A reminder, Off the Wall Breakfast is with UPMC Orthopedic Care. When things don't move, rotate, or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action. We'll do the cash machine.